أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي آمين يا رب العالمين. Assalamu alaikum everyone. I hope all of you are doing great, and I also hope that you have solved all the exercises and you have watched all the videos related to the characteristics of an ism, which is what we have been dealing with for the past few lessons. Now is the time to review all of that information and to put it all together in one slide. Now, as you might remember, you have already seen this slide previously in the lesson in which I gave you an introduction to the ism and how you can approach it, and about the four various kinds of information that an ism gives about itself. Alright, so now we have done, alhamdulillah, everything that is mentioned on this slide. And I had also mentioned in that lecture that by the end of what we are doing at this moment regarding ism, you are going to love this review chart, all right, because it is going to elaborate and review and summarize everything that we have done so far in a very systematic manner, inshallah. All right, so let's get on with our review. First of all, we have our ism, and we see that an ism is going to give about itself four signals, and we simply call those four signals as characteristics of an ism. And so far we have been tuning our minds to decode these four signals coming from an ism, okay, and we call them characteristics of an ism. Okay, so what those four characteristics of an ism are: first of all, it's the i'rab of the ism, and then it's the status of an ism, number, and gender. So i'rab is what is the role of an ism, what is its designation in the sentence or in the phrase. All right, what is it? Okay, so we have already covered i'rab, and I hope that you have understood it thoroughly. Okay, now first of all, we are going to address each of these characteristics in two subcategories. First of all, what exactly are they, or rather how are they further classified, and how can we differentiate between various classifications. Okay, so what are the i'rab? I'rab can either be rafa, nasab, or jar. Okay, and what is the difference between these three kinds is something that I have already elaborated on in previous lessons. I would really urge you to go and watch those lessons if you haven't yet already watched. It would be really a bad idea to summarize those differences here in this very review lesson. Okay, there's a reason it's called a review. That is because all the difficult concepts have already been addressed. Anyways, so we have three types of i'rab: rafa, nasab, or jar. Now, how do we tell them apart? There are three ways to tell these i'rab apart. We can either tell these apart by way of tanween. So for rafa, we have the tanween of double dhamma. Okay, double dhamma. All right, it gives the sound of un. Then the tanween for nasab is double zabar or double fathas. You call it fathataini. Okay, all right, now you know why it's called fathataini, because you have the aini sound in the end. Okay, and or you could have the two zairs or two kasras. Okay, this is for telling the jar status or jar i'rab. Okay, so that's how you can tell it apart by way of a tanween. Now you can also tell the i'rab apart by way of suffix. This is something that we did here while making plurals. Okay, and the wahid asma are told apart by tanween, but for the suffix we have the suffix of ani and aini. All right, so ani suffix is for the musanna rafa, and the aini suffix is for musanna nasab and jar. Okay, and for jama, that is more than two in number, is once again we have suffixes. Okay, for rafa we have the suffix of una, and for a masculine ism, and for a feminine ism it's atun. Okay, then if you have the nasab or jar jama, all right, then for that you have the suffix for masculine as ina and ina. Once again, nasab and jar are similar to each other. And for your suffix of a feminine noun, you have the suffix of atin and atin, nasab and jar. Okay, so that's how you can tell these i'rab apart, by way of suffix. And of course, if you are dealing with a ghair munsarif asma, if you're dealing with a ghair munsarif ism or a mabni ism where the rafa, nasab and jar forms are similar to each other, that is mabni. But and in ghair munsarif asma, the nasab and jar forms are identical to each other, but they are different from the rafa form. How do you tell those i'rab apart then? That is where context comes in. Okay, and this context thing is also applicable to your nasab and jar forms, because they are identical to each other, and there are certain ways and scenarios where it is explicitly clear whether it is nasab or jar. Okay, and that is what inshallah we're going to cover in fragments. All right, so we are done with i'rab. Next we have gender. Okay, or let's cover number first. So what are the subcategories of number? It can either be wahid, one in number, it can be musanna, two in number, or it could be more than two in number. Yeah, okay, in which case it would be called jama. And how do we tell these numbers apart? First of all, actually, by the way, there are two ways of determining whether it's wahid, musanna or jama. First of all, you've got the pattern, and then you have got suffix. Okay, so we have already discussed the suffixes. For you who don't have any suffix for wahid, of course, okay, and you do have suffix for musanna and jama. So for musanna we have ani, aini, aini for masculine, tani, taini, taini for feminine nouns. And for jama, you have the suffix of una, ina, ina for masculine, and atun, atin, atin for feminine nouns. Jama salim. This is jama salim. All right, and jama mukassir is where you distinguish the number of an ism based on the type of pattern. Okay, so if it is fu'ulun, for example, it would be your jama mukassir, and that too of the kisrat type, where the ism is more than 10 in number. Okay, so for example, if you have the word bahrun, it means a sea. Okay, it can be used in three patterns. It can either be less than 3 in number, in which case you use, it can either be between 3 and 10 in numbers, so it's going to be used in the pattern of abhurun. Okay, and if it is more than 10 in number, then it would be either biharun or buhurun. Okay, so that's what so that's how you can distinguish this thing. Okay, so we are done with numbers as well. Next we have status. Now, an ism can either be marfa or nakra. All right, so what can or how can it be further classified? The status, that is, it can either be nakra or marfa. Now, how do we distinguish it? We tell these two statuses apart by way of determining if it is marfa or not. So there are 7 situations for an ism to be in marfa form, or rather marfa status, and if none of those situations is being satisfied, then of course we can say that it is a nakra ism. All right, and what those 7 situations are, first of all, okay, I'm gonna ask you to revise it. Okay, just pause the screen and just recall what those 7 situations were, and then you can get back to the screen and see if you can get them all, inshallah. Okay, so the 7 situations for an ism to be marfa include: number 1, the name of a person. Okay, so you have ism alam, or it could be a pronoun. Pronouns are he, she, they, all the pronouns are by default marfa. Then we're done with pronouns. Okay, then you have the way of making an ism marfa by adding it to al, the prefix of al. Okay, al. All right, mu'arraf bil lam asma. Then you have all the connecting nouns, which are once again marfa. Okay, so you have the words such as allazi, allazina, and all such words, they are marfa by default. Then if you are pointing towards something, the pointing noun itself is a marfa noun. All right, so this, or simply haza, hazihi, ulaika. Okay, all these words are marfa by default. 1 2 3 4 5 6 and 7 are left. uh, the sixth one is the munada. Okay, so the one who is being called out to is your marfa ism. All right, and finally we had the muzaf of marfa ism. All right, so this was our seventh point. And what was muzaf? Muzaf is simply the possessed ism. Okay, so for example, if I'm saying book of Allah, the word book is muzaf and the word Allah is muzaf alayh. Now the word Allah, since it is marfa, all right, therefore the word book also becomes marfa because it is possessed by a marfa ism. Okay, so that was our seventh situation for an ism to be marfa. So if any of these situations is applicable to an ism, it becomes marfa. If none of these are applicable to an ism, then of course then we can simply label that ism as nakra. Okay, finally we have the gender of an ism. And okay, of course, how can it be further classified? Since we are studying Arabic and not English, we can say it is only two genders. Okay, so we have an ism can either be masculine or feminine. If we have it in English, for example, then of course there are two genders, but then for the inanimate objects we don't give them any specific gender, we just use the word it. Okay, we don't say he or she. Okay, and in Arabic, how can we determine the gender of an ism? There are 5 situations for an ism to be considered as feminine. Okay, and if one of those is satisfied or applicable, then that ism is labeled as feminine and not masculine. What those 5 situations are, I would once again ask you to pause the screen and recall those 5 situations and then get back to the screen and see if you got them all correct. Okay, so for the 5 situations, for an ism to be feminine, we should recall our pentagon. Okay, so first of all, it should be an actual feminine. Okay, so a girl, the word girl, for example, the word woman, the word um, mares, for example. All right, so all these female animals, female humans, female jinns, anything that actually is a female is obviously a female. Okay, next we had certain labels or suffixes, if you will, for identifying an ism as feminine. All right, and what those, I should zoom it up, what those signals were or what those tags were. First of all, we had the suffix of ta marbuta, the round ta. Okay, so any ism that has this ta is considered to be feminine. Okay, and this is true in almost 99.9% of cases. There's only a couple of exceptions, and inshallah we're going to get to that as well. All right, the second suffix was the alif hamza combo. This thing is called alif mamduda. All right, and about 90 to 95% of asma are the ones that follow this rule. Okay, so if you see an ism that ends on alif mamduda, then there is a 95% chance of that ism being feminine, but there is also a 5% chance for that ism to be masculine. Okay, so don't always consider this scenario as feminine. Okay, similarly, the last one was alif maksura, and for that we had this thing is called alif maksura, and once again the same rule applies here as well. About 90 to 95% of the times this suffix bearing ism is going to be considered as feminine. However, there's always a simultaneous 5% chance that this ism could be masculine too. Okay, so don't always consider this as feminine. All right, so we are done with 2 of our cases for an ism to be feminine. We're done with the actual feminine, and then we're done with the suffixes. Then comes the fact that there are some cases or there are some situations where the ism means or it is the synonym of some specific words. So for example, if you have the word air or if there is a paired body organ, all right, then, or fire, all right, then these are your words, the synonym of which is always going to be considered feminine. All right. Next we have Jama Mukassir. So Jama Mukassir of all the ghair aqil asma are going to be always considered feminine. Okay. However, if you find the Jama Mukassir of an aqil ism, such as the word rusul, it can be treated both as feminine as well as masculine, grammatically, of course. All right. So that's what this pointer means. And finally, the Arab discretion, that there are certain asma that have just been designated as feminine by the Arab linguists, and of course we have to abide by their laws. Okay, so these were the 5 situations for an ism to be feminine. If none of these are satisfied, then of course we can very safely label that ism as masculine. Okay, otherwise, if one situation of if 1 out of 5 or any of the situations that we discussed just right now, if that is applicable, then of course we are going to label it as feminine. Okay, so this was our review, and we have of course also learned how to convert an ism from being nakra to maraf bilam, and we have also discussed how we can convert a feminine how we can convert a masculine adjective, all right, human adjective, of course, how we can convert that masculine ism such as salihun or abidun into feminine counterparts. So that's what, and of course these adjectives are always going to denote some aqil ism. You're not going to form the feminine counterparts of the ghair aqil masculine asma such as kitabun. What is going to be the feminine for kitab, of course it doesn't exist, right? So of course that is obvious that you're going to make the feminine counterparts of the aqil asma. However, there is once again some exceptions to it, and we are going to address them as the time comes. Okay, so you don't need to worry about those just as yet. This was the review of whatever we have done up till now, and inshallah with this review in mind, we are going to start off with ism analysis in the next lesson, which is going to be more of a practice session. All right, and we are going to see how we can apply this knowledge whenever we come across an ism during a recitation. Okay, so till that lesson, barakallahu li wa lakum fil Qur'an al Hakim. Allah Hafiz.